Tom, I'd love to, I'll stop sharing and let you kind of show us the magic behind all of this, these great new features.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michael. Well, shall we start off with data sources? So yeah, Michael touched on the importance of, grounding your agent in data. And one of the key things we really want to do is make that process as quick and as streamlined as possible, and take away some of the challenges and the time consumption that Michael kind of talked about earlier. So should we get started now at our first data source? I'm going to start with Google Drive. I've already got an authentication here, so I just need to select that. But if I didn't have an authentication, I could use this flow here to provide one. I'm also going to select a folder. I could ingest the entire drive, or I could pick out a specific folder. Let's just pick out a specific folder for now. And that's it. So 3 or 4 clicks, we'll save that Google Drive. And there it is. Essentially, now what will happen is the data source will go and actually pull files from that folder that I shared and begin ingesting them and making them available to the agent. Whilst it's doing that, should we drop another agent in? Let's put Slack in, shall we? And again, I'll use this existing author I've got here. The whole idea behind this is really kind of presenting this kind of really simple but flexible, configurable experience. Giving you the chance to actually have total control over what's ingested and where it's ingested from, but also kind of like nice little additions like being able to ingest images, for example. So if I tick this box here, what will happen now when I add my Slack data source? Any images in any of the channels that I ingest will also be ingested. The text will be extracted, and that will be made available to the agent as well. So I select a channel here. Let's go for this channel. And as you can see, I can actually select multiple channels to this interface as well. So I could put a couple of channels in here. Maybe put this one in as well and click Save. And now that will add this Slack Google Drive, Slack data source, sorry, to my kind of list of data sources and begin the ingestion process. As you can see just there, Google Drive is complete. It's ingested 33 documents from that folder. And now Slack is in progress. And we'll start pulling the data from those channels. So
Great.
yeah, blinking you miss it there a bit, Michael. So again, it's quite a lot to show off in just a few clicks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tom. So, during the presentation, we're talking about there's a lot of issues in organizations having to build their own data pipelines, having to pour a lot of developer resources in behind it. What you showed was very simple. With a couple of clicks of a button, we're able to get a significant amount of data ingested into the agent. Would you give us a bit of a background on that in terms of how complicated is it to do that, right? Everything looks simple, but it's always the proof is always in the pudding.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we should switch over here and just off the back of that talk about some of those limitations. And you touched on this earlier when you talked about traditional integration, traditional sort of data pipelines, but also traditional connectivity. With traditional connectors, there's and integrations. You kind of need to know what you're asking for. You make a request for a particular resource and you get it back, and that's largely true, with any API or any query you need to write against a particular data source. So there's a significant gap in the middle, which right now people having to fill, as you described it, with manual data pipelines, complex transformations, all this kind of things that people are having to kind of think about again. And now they're having to think about it with unstructured data as well as structured data. So what we kind of did and what you saw before, each data source is powered by the Tray knowledge engine. And this basically takes away all of those challenges that we've just talked about in terms of accessing the data, partitioning it, deciding how to break it down, chunking it, how to break those partitions down into kind of readable chunks for the agent to actually use, then embedding that data to make it accessible to natural language, making it semantically searchable, so that agents can actually access the information that they need. It's really important. We've tried out kind of structured and unstructured and semi-unstructured here, kind of different types of data source. The idea being with the top one that you can essentially import the metadata of, a large database, data warehouse, that kind of thing. And then the LLM can actually interpret the tables it has access to actually build queries and access that data. Now that's incredibly powerful, and that's how a structured data source would work. But also, of course, it works with unstructured data. We've got Notion as an example here, but you also saw Google Drive and Slack previously, the ability to ingest data from those sources, full data sets, and making them available to search for the agent. Now, what's really, really important with the knowledge engine is obviously each of these different data sources have data stored in different formats. And what we take away with our knowledge data sources is all that complexity around partitioning, chunking, and embedding. We handle all of that and we've optimized it for each of our data sources.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much for showing us that, Tom. I mean, it goes to show you like the level of complexity that we have taken out for the organization to, being able to just with, as I said, with the click of a couple of buttons to be able to get all of these complex data sources into the agent. I think it's tremendously forward. Everything that looks easy is usually pretty complex on the back end. So thanks so much for walking us through that. Um, when I was talking on before, we were talking about the memory and the ability to handle memory within sessions, both long term and short term. Uh, would you mind kind of just giving us some examples of that in the platform and how we're handling that?
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned earlier something about having to explain or something or talk to a colleague about something, the same thing every single day. Can't possibly imagine what that feels like.
Yeah.
But no, it's a significant problem, and anyone that kind of interacts regularly with LLMs and agents in particular, you have that consistent frustration that you're really getting somewhere. You're getting to the point where you've got some value, and then you have to tonight start another tangential thread or another kind of piece of work, as you described earlier, and you essentially this feeling of starting to scratch. You're teaching this agent what it needs to know. So what we're introducing, firstly, in terms of session context, we've got that covered. Tray can handle massive context in the session, so the limitation there will really be the context window of the LLM you're using. It won't be a medium term memory. And I'll kind of show you how it works just to, with this kind of hopefully rather straightforward question here, asking the agent what my name is. You can see this is a brand new session with this agent. This isn't based on a previous kind of chain of conversation. This is yeah, just a request I've sent directly to this agent. What this agent will actually be able to do is go and look through the conversations I've had with it previously, and retrieve information that I've discussed with it before. And here we go. Look, it's told me what my name is, so we got that right. That's always a good start. Where I work in the product team, and I've been here since 2021, and my boss Ali Russell. So yeah, not all great information, but there it is on the screen. But yeah, this is incredibly powerful. A fresh session. What's also really powerful this as well, if this is specific to me, so it has memories based on my interactions with the agents. This isn't just listing every single interaction that someone has had with an agent. It's specific to me, so it won't have context of conversations that other people have had. So it really allows you to deploy agents that are kind of really scalable across the organization because they can remember a wide sort of corpus of context specific to individuals interacting with the agent.
Yeah, this is great, Tom. And like if I was a glass half empty type of guy, and we've all interfaced with ChatGPT and other AI models, I would say so what, right? Like I would say, why is this really important for agents?
It's a good question, Michael. And I think, this example here, kind of getting reminded of my name is it's great for demo purposes. But why this is really kind of powerful is if you remember what we've showed in the agent builder before, is the incredibly wide range of tools you've got access to. So we really see is kind of this kind of bringing it all together. We already had the kind of limbs and the arms of the robot that allowed it to kind of take action. Now we're kind of really bringing in this brain concept, this ability to remember. So what can happen now is you can deploy agents that remember context so they can get to the value point quickly, and then they can take the action they need to in various different systems. So you've got the best of both worlds essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we've talked about orchestrating, agent of agents and having that internal memory. I think that's another key component um, as it relates to giving agents memory and being able to understand that. Um, w- when when we look at LLMs and LLM flexibility, how are we making it easier for the organization to bring in whatever LLM they would like um, for whatever use case.
Yeah, it's another sort of great question, Michael. And I think we can show that off as well. Again, you kind of touched on it earlier, the kind of the need for different uses of different models for different use cases. And the way we're thinking about agents being deployed, and you'll see this when we kind of talk about how we kind of expose our agents. But the idea of one mega agent that does absolutely everything is unrealistic. And agents are not like human beings are going to be assigned specific tasks, but which essentially become their job. And those jobs essentially require different levels of essentially capability. So as you can see here, I'm currently using Claude for Sonnet via AWS Bedrock with this particular agent. But I can change that just through here straight away. So I can go in. This agent isn't doing anything particularly heavy, so I could potentially switch to a smaller model. Something like Haiku 3.5, where I'd get faster results, which is ideal. Or perhaps I want to pick an entirely different provider, much like the kind of data source process. The idea is this is really easy to configure, clicking through. If you haven't provided an authentication already, you can go through the authentication process here, and then you can select a model for this. I might go for a smaller model if I've got some kind of orchestration engine, which is distributing tasks to other agents, which, have a kind of higher model. So that's what we really wanted to kind of bring in here. That's kind of, I guess, it's simple kind of click through process to kind of select your agents, but it really kind of aligns with the way we're thinking about agents being this kind of distributed architecture of agent of agents, and we're seeing lots of emerging frameworks which are supporting that. Particularly Google's A2A is getting quite a lot of attention right now for this kind of inter-agent communication, and being able to easily change and set the model for each agent is a critical part of that process.
Yeah, so your last sentence there, being able to easily change the LLM for the right model, or sorry, for the right use case. We've made it incredibly easy to do this, but we know there's a lot of complexity on the back end in order to give this incredibly easy user interface. Uh, would you mind just kind of walking us through how we got here? What were the hurdles? How did we come up with such an easy to use interface, right? It's like, again, kind of showing how we bake the cake, if you will.
Yeah, well, much like data sources, the key was extracting complexity. So, virtually all model providers offer some kind of tool calling, kind of agentic kind of use case where you can provide actions that your agents can take. What we've built is a kind of an agnostic layer above that sits above each of these underlying services. So when we introduce new models and providers, we build them in as part of our kind of underlying process. So essentially, you can swap them out directly. This is all you need to do. I don't need to change the prompt. I don't need to change the format of any of my tools. I don't need to adjust anything. It automatically works no matter what I select here. So that's really kind of where again, simple on the outside, but there's a ton of complexity under the hood to make sure we're making the right calls to the LLM when you invoke the agent.
Yeah, no doubt. And I see a number of questions coming through. So I think LLMs definitely sparked a lot of curiosity there. So that's good to see. So, Tom, we've talked about giving the agent the right data, giving it both short-term and long-term memory for better recall, then being able to point it at the right model based on the right use case. And now, as we talk, like the most important thing now is being able to deploy that agent where we're meeting users for much better agent adoption, which is what we're all here about. So would you walk us through how we're approaching that and kind of some of the examples that we have done to make that easier for the organizations?
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, building on what I mentioned earlier around, this kind of agentic framework or agentic orchestration, every agent built on Tray is automatically exposed as an API. so it can immediately be called by other agents who can consume it as a tool, or can be set in between other kind of processes as well. But we also kind of want to obviously expose it in the place where people are working. So I'll kind of show you quickly. You might remember MemTray from Slack. This is MemTray in Teams. This is actually the exact same agent, and it has access to the same memory, as you can see here. Um, so I can kind of send it kind of a message, and this may be exposed to team. As I said, this is the same actual agent. I've got it linked with my user, so it knows that it's me, and I'm able to kind of tell it things and have conversations with it based on knowledge that it already has. Well, there it is. So yeah, it looks
Perfect.
like this is all kind of true. There it is. Yeah, Michael Douglas, he's working out great too. It's yeah, it's going okay. And it's
I think
going
that agent
smoothly.
might be telling you some lies, but it's okay. Keep going.
But yeah, so that's it. So this is yeah, you've seen it deployed to Slack, you see it deployed in Teams. This is again, as I say, the exact same that I'm interacting with here. Obviously, these are kind of, not entity exposed over API, which allows you to deploy it anywhere, but you could also deploy it between, a range of other channels as well for, interacting between sort of asynchronous processes, ticketing systems, that kind of thing. So you can actually, yeah, essentially deploy your agents anywhere.
Terrific, terrific. And I know that our the agent can take full value of the all of the native Slack and team features. So it's not just a conversational interface, but it's giving you uh, a true native experience within whatever wherever you deploy it.
Yeah, so if you look back at some of the previous sessions that my boss Ali Russell, as you saw earlier, has done. He showed a very interactive kind of ITSM agent, which is capable of taking a range of actions and actually makes use of the interactive components of a tool like Slack. So, it's even further closer time to value where you can use the action buttons, that kind of thing. And in his case, the agent itself is generating those action buttons. It's not a kind of laborious kind of block kit building exercise. They are dynamically generated based on the interaction the agent is having with the user.
Yeah, great. That's so, Tom, thank you so much for walking everyone through this great new feature list. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us. So what